Brilliant. So just to recap, you got 16 teams, did you say? 16 teams, migrant workers, domestic helpers, a whole coterie of volunteers and sponsors you've got lined up. And we can't even get Singaporeans to play. That's I just want to get that out there because I'm going to let rip later when we get to the SEA Games. But hello and welcome to part 2 of Yahoo Footballing Weekly with me, Yahoo columnist Neil Humphreys.
And me, Yahoo editor Chia Keong. And him,
Rasvinder Singh.
Rasvinder Singh, football podcaster in Singapore.
Yeah. You do a podcast for Balestier, right?
So we run a podcast called Back Pass with Ras. This is what I'm wearing, the merch.
Yeah, Back Pass
represent.
with Ras. Yeah.
So this podcast essentially is about football from the 90s and the noughties. We reminisce about football from that era.
The best time.
Yeah, certainly. I agree. And then there's a bridge to the present as well because I've got a co-host who's a bit younger and his memories start from the noughties.
Who's the co-host?
So my co-host is Kelvin Singh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
And we have another podcast show that we run for Balestier Khalsa. That's every fortnightly, where we interview the players, the staff members. So we bring the players to the fans, or actually not even just the players, the staff as well, chairman, vice chairman. So yeah, that's what we
Brilliant.
do.
First, I was just going to say, the first game I ever saw in Singapore would have been late November 1996, and it was at Balestier. Because that was my local team. Support your local team. And I'm going to come back to this later when I get stuck into the SEA Games whacking culture that we have. But yeah, support the local team. I lived in Topo, Lorong 8, late November 96.
Balestier Central that time.
Balestier Central. And those days, so many fans, it was around 3,500. They had to put the additional seating onto the other track. On the other side, The whole stadium was packed.
Nice.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Good old days.
What was you going to say? I interrupted you.
I forgot what I was saying. But
You forgot already? All right, never mind. But give this man another plug because he's doing something that is very close to my heart. He is helping to organise Singapore's first
league.
First league, local league
Only.
for migrant helpers, for domestic helpers, carers in the community. Fantastic. Tell us about that.
So yeah, this is a Migrant Domestic Workers League. Initially it was foreign domestic workers when we started it, and then we realized there's a term change now. Yeah. So how this came about was thanks to someone who used to work with us, Lubis Ratno, shout out to him. So he actually came across this tournament for migrant domestic workers. He got intrigued by it, got involved in the tournament, sponsoring a Filipino team. And then he got to know of the migrant domestic workers, and they were really, really keen to play more regularly than just one-off tournaments here and there. And that's when he mooted this idea to me that, would we want to run this at D2D Sports? And I said, yeah, why not? Let's take it on. We'll run this for them, and we took it on as a CSR project.
And it's expanding, right? You're getting
it's
more
expanding.
And more.
So yeah, in the first season we had 8 teams. That ended in March this year, and now on the back of season 1, we've got 16 teams now.
Brilliant.
8 in 2 groups. Wouldn't say 2 divisions because it's based on their availability.
Of course.
Yeah, so it's 2 groups. And everyone's really pumped up for season 2. We've managed to arrange volunteer coaches for them.
Oh,
fantastic.
People have come forward to sponsor the team. So in terms of the match fees, registration fees, their kit, everything, teams are getting sponsored. Not every team, so there's some scope there.
Brilliant. So just to recap, you got 16 teams, did you say? 16 teams, migrant workers, domestic helpers, a whole coterie of volunteers and sponsors you've got lined up. And we can't even get Singaporeans to play. That's I just want to get that out there because I'm going to let rip later when we get to the SEA Games. But fantastic
we're still open
initiative.
for more sponsorship though.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so
Where should they get in touch?
They can email me, Rasvinder at d2dsports.com.
Which will be here.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
Email me and then we'll work something out, of course.
Fantastic. Right, should we get stuck into it,
Sure.
Comments. Right,
Again,
lots as
we
always.
have now we're just saying three paragraph long-winded essays that regularly come to us.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for your comments.
Yeah. I know who you are as well.
just a little tip. Economy is your friend.
Yes.
In writing and in life, economy is your friend. The shorter, more concise, the better. But we love all of them. Right, let's get stuck into it. What have we got? Balbinda.
Okay, Balbinda. Well, we had talked so much about Singapore football in the recent weeks. So whether it's ever going to be rise up again and this and that. So this guy is saying, Balbinder says, because many people keep looking backwards to the Malaysia Cup days and getting excited about beating the Malaysia team, while Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand and Vietnam teams are already beating us now. And where are the supporters? As soon as a match is not in Malaysia, the supporters don't bother.
Couldn't agree more. It's one of my favourite comments.
Yeah, that's why I saw this comment. I thought you just hit the nail on the head. We cannot be always be stuck in that Malaysia Cup days mode again, because those days are gone. Even if you go into Malaysia Cup, as we said before, it's not going to have that same kind of
not
magic.
the same feel. Even for Malaysians, we don't feel that rivalry, that intensity with Singapore anymore.
Because you're moving on.
Yeah, for us, it's Thailand, Vietnam.
Yeah, you're looking up, not down. Yeah. In every sense, literally, geographically, and professionally.
That's why. That's I totally agree with you, Balbinder.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we should keep moving on. But the thing is, how fast are we going to move on? So that's another question altogether.
Brilliant. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. I happen to have today Bobby Moore on my shirt here. Bobby Moore, of course, was the England World Cup winning captain of 1966. He used to talk about Scotland the way I sometimes think we talk about Malaysia, meaning that when Scotland famously beat England, I think it was about 1968, they seriously wanted England to give them the World Cup. Because the whole thing about Scotland, the whole ethos was beating England was everything. So they'd put everything into beating England and then we'll get whacked by some minnow. Who does that remind you of? Singapore is obsessed with Malaysia and the Malaysia Cup and the past and the history and this cross-causeway rivalry. And then they'll go get whacked by Cambodia or Laos or one of the minnows. You have to move on. You have to stop being so myopic towards the causeway and look further.
And now Scotland has thankfully changed that kind of outlook.
Yeah,
really.
there's more to Scottish football than just beating England, and there has to be more to Singaporean football than just beating Malaysia once every couple of years.
Yep.
Can't keep living in the past. We've got to move on.
Yep.
I agree. That was a great comment. What have we got next?
We got another one from Prabhu. Hi guys, been listening to all your podcasts and loving it. Thank you very much. So the SPL, I think it's best that we align the direction of this league. Where are we? What are we trying to achieve in this league as compared to our Southeast Asia counterparts? Now we have Brunei, DPMM, possibility of new development teams joining the SPL. What do we actually want the league to be? So I'm all in for the Asian Super League if that means more sponsorship and recognition.
Yeah, go on.
Is that Asian or ASEAN?
I think it means ASEAN.
ASEAN, I think it means ASEAN.
Yeah.
Because we've discussed it before on the show. What do you think?
ASEAN Super League, I think, could actually be a good thing. Because even in Malaysia, it's like JDT is dominating. Every season, we know JDT is going to win the league. It's a no contest. Probably similar, something similar is happening in Thailand as well. I'm not in tune with what's happening there in their domestic league.
They also have a couple of top teams and a couple of struggles.
So probably an ASEAN Super League could be a good thing, good idea.
I agree.
And then the rest can just, play and there's a bit more competition.
I agree with both you and Prabhu. We have actually discussed this on the show before. And conversely, even though I'm completely against a European Super League because they have different values, they want to close shop to protect themselves forever. This is very, very different. The regional domestic leagues can't really survive beyond the one or two, as you mentioned, Lion City Sailors, JDT, one or two privately funded teams. They're okay, but the rest are struggling. I believe because we're so small that a Singaporean league, a Malaysian league, domestic league could end up being a feeder league to an ASEAN Premier League, where the top 2 or 3 teams go up to the ASEAN Super League, but there's still relegation and promotion.
Yeah.
So there's an incentive for all of the domestic leagues to still push, because a team that finishes 4th or 5th maybe next year goes up into the ASEAN Super League. So your middling teams, your Geerlangs or your Hougangs, just 1 or 2 players, and they can leapfrog into an ASEAN League. If you've got an ASEAN Super League, in theory, you've got a greater TV audience, you've got more revenues, you've got more sponsors, and you could easily organise some form of parachute payments where some of the money, a percentage of the money, filters down to the domestic leagues because they're acting as feeder teams, feeder leagues for your ASEAN Super League. I think it works.
The only hindrance I think is just government and associations trying to.
That is a big hindrance.
Meddling.
That is a big hindrance.
How many spots will this country get?
Good point.
How many? Yeah,
Good point.
it's always going to be a very tough discussion going to happen.
Good point. Yeah, I never thought we had enough problems with Lions 12. And it was just one team.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, good luck.
But it's worth discussing.
It's worth discussing.
Because as Prabhu correctly says, I'm not sure if this current setup can continue indefinitely.
Yeah.
Unless we suddenly get another 3-4 Line City Sailors, which I can't see happening anytime soon.
Not really.
I don't know how long we can keep drifting with this. All right, the time has come, Keong.
Yep.
SEA Games. You've been covering it.
SEA Games.
Give us the overview.
So, the young Lions have gone to Cambodia, lost the first 2 matches against tough opposition, Thailand and Vietnam for sure, and then drew 0-0 against Laos, which was not really a good result, but I wouldn't say it was unexpected. That's the standard at where we are now. So, following that draw, we are out of the SEA Games for the fifth SEA Games. Means 10 years we've not been able to advance even into the semi-finals, much less go for goal. So, I mean, it's a disappointing, but this season, I think for this SEA Games was quite expected because we are facing tough opposition. But of course, once this thing comes out, there have been mainstream media has been coming out with commentaries, saying that
some good commentaries.
There are good commentaries saying that patience is running out among fans. And FAS, I think. You need to be honest with how the state of local football is in. You've been keep on championing about young Lions being in the Premier League, playing again and again, losing again and again, and now it looks like it's not even. There's no improvement of their results in the international stage. So, what is going to be? We have to be honest with our results. So, naturally, it drew a lot of comments. I mean, even on our podcast, the most of the comments are about young Lions. I just read some of it to you. So, Ryan King, 1986, say, SG Singapore's idea is to aim high along the way, get some scraps if they don't get into the World Cup, and then say we've improved. So a bit, yep. Another one, IQ17, say, look at our under-22 team in the SEA Games, represented but mostly by young Lions that don't have a winning mentality and finish bottom every season. The young Lions can't even beat bottom team SPL teams, and they are led by a coach that currently has only 1 win in the league. We need better coaches, and if our youngsters keep playing under a mediocre local coach, they will be ingrained with mediocre mentality once they start representing the national team.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of criticism, obviously, that keyboard warriors have come out in droves.
I think there's a difference. I'll get to the difference in a moment. But first, what do you think, Rasvinder? SEA Games, the performance, the response?
I don't think it's a surprise that Singapore is out early. It would have been a surprise if Singapore got through, though.
It was. Yeah. We said that last week.
Yeah. But I am a bit surprised that Singapore can't even beat Laos. So that is a bit of a shock for me. Because I felt at least you could beat Laos, if not 5-1 or 6-0 or whatever.
We had a penalty.
At least 1 or 2-0, you could still beat them.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 2 issues here for me. There's the football side and the admin side, which we'll talk about, because I think those criticisms are valid. There's been lots of talk about FAS, the administrative setup and so on. The only thing I will say is, in recent days, this happens every 2 years. We've seen a lot of this negativity coming out, right? This whole Unleash the Raw, I mean, it should be renamed Unleash the Whiners, right? Because as a nation, we are gold medalists as keyboard warriors. I mean, we are gold medalists. We are the gold standard when it comes to whining. Last few days, I'm so ashamed of Singapore and I'm going to whack the boys. Do you play?
No.
Do you let your boys play? Do you let your girls play? Yes, the 11 boys on the pitch didn't have a great tournament. We kind of expected that, but they're out there. Where are you? When was the last time you went to a game? What players can you name that are not called Fandi?
Yeah.
Don't keep talking to me about the Malaysia Cup. Don't keep talking to me about Kwa Kim Song. I've heard it all before, right? The Kwa brothers and Lim Tong Hai and Stephen Tan. I've heard it all before. Do you watch football now? Do you let your kids play now? Are you willing to support their development? If any of those questions are no, and most of the time they are no, you have no argument in this. But every 2 years, regular as clockwork, out they come. Out they come. Well, Singapore this, Singapore that, whack, 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 whack.
Yeah. Replace the FAS, but you know who replaces?
Yeah,
Replace
whack the
who?
FAS,
Do
whack
you
this,
want
whack
to
that.
replace FAS? Nobody.
But here's the thing, I'm not talking about our regulars, because the guys who write into us regularly, they are committed, they are passionate, they watch the game locally, they're insightful, they know what they're talking about. I'm talking about the guys who never comment about local football.
Fly by night.
Unless it's ASEAN tournaments, SEA Games, World Cup qualification. Where were they when Farrer Park closed down? Nowhere. Where were they when Turf City, announced going to shut down to build condos? Nowhere. You know why? Because they're happy. Condos mean money. We don't want to be a nation of footballers. We want to be a nation of landlords, right? That's the hypocrisy I struggle with. I really do struggle with the hypocrisy and the unfair criticism of the boys out on the pitch, right? So all I would say is at least be consistent. Follow the game year round, like the guys who chat to us. No problem, But these once every 2 year weekend warriors, they'll whack, 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 whack. And then this weekend, you know what will happen? It will go back to, so, Man U, how are?
Yeah.
This weekend, Man U, how are? Can he or not? Can he or not? And then local football, forgotten. It's just the hypocrisy that drives me crazy. What do you think?
What do you think?
What I think, well, whatever you say is nailed on, because I only see this on, of course, I'm coming in now as a detached viewer. I'm not supporting Singapore. I've seen it in a cold light. So, you look at the comments on
Full disclosure,
Facebook.
because you're Malaysian, then people might think you've given up on Singapore.
No,
You're a Malaysian supporter.
So I'm from across the border.
That's
so,
right.
Nice.
So things are going better there. But even then, let's not talk about that. But in Singapore, you always see, people will come out with criticism. As you've mentioned, they've not watched the game, not watched the S League game, SPL game ever. They can't name the players.
I don't think they have skin in the game, as they say.
Yeah. They can't name the players. They criticize too quickly. It's always a very common criticism to blame the FAS. Yeah, probably they are to be blamed as well, certainly.
Yeah,
But-
as I said, that's a separate argument.
Yeah, but that, what exactly are you blaming them for? Are they to be blamed for every single thing? It looks like every single thing, every single problem in the world, they are to be blamed. It's a bit like the politics in Singapore, like every single thing is the ruling party's problem. Anything happens, the ruling party blame them.
Absolutely. And there's certainly an anti-government element to some of this, because FAS
It's
associated with the
also-
government,
it's
so whack,
also
whack, whack.
correct.
So I saw a few comments on Keong saying, enough wasting money on football, put it into swimming, put it into athletics, put it into whatever. But again, it's hypocritical because they don't have enough money, arguably, the FES. They don't have enough resources because people don't watch the games. If people don't watch the games, there's no advertising. If there's no advertising, there's no revenue. And you can't keep asking for taxpayer-funded bailouts to your national game if no one's going to go and watch it, right? I mean, it's a lot easier to fund an individual swimmer than it is, two dozen footballers,
Yeah, it's gotten to the point, it's almost like they are a bit snobbish, and then they look at people who are still supporting local football, and then they are look down upon you, and they're saying, why are you still supporting the
Like you're a
failure
commoner,
of a sport, they feel that through criticism they feel like a bit more higher up than you, that kind of mentality. I don't know, it might scratch their itch for a while, like happy, they feel like they're a bit proud like that, but no, it doesn't help improving local football at all, if that's what it means. It doesn't even help improving local sports in general, if you have that continuous attitude that, whatever is not doing well is not worth, is to be looked down upon.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I could not agree more, 100%. And look, as I said at the start, they're two separate issues. We're not saying the admin or the failure of admin is not an issue.
It is a big
There's been
issue.
very good points raised this week in the press about the FAS, about the handling of the media, the handling of the PR.
About bad decisions,
You have to front it up like you do in any company. Like you run a company, you organize tournaments. If your tournaments are unsuccessful, you as an employer has to front it up and say, we did this wrong or we did this right. You are no different to me, you, Yahoo, FAS. We have to front up. We can't hide. If a tournament doesn't go well or if we are falling short of our expectations,
we have to.
People have to go in front of microphones. They have to go in front of cameras and notepads and say, this is what we did right and this is what we did wrong. You can't hide. There has to be accountability. It's taxpayers' money, right? Ultimately, it's taxpayers' money.
But they keep insisting they are right, but that's another story altogether.
So, I don't know, guys. Unleash the raw, but I think unleash the raw in the right places. Don't just unleash it on Facebook.
That's right, exactly.
Maybe unleash it at an S-League game, a Singapore Premier League game.
Come down and watch the players play.
Go watch these boys at Ballastine or whatever.
It's not bad. It's not bad. Give it a try.
That's good, right. So what have we got here? Do we do IQ 17?
Yeah. All done already.
Right, brilliant. But what do you think? Most importantly, what do you think? Where does the blame lie here? Do we keep blaming the young boys or do we look at those who are not playing? Is it the FAS? Is it the admin? Where do we go from here?
Do we have to look at ourselves? Whether we should put the money where the mouth is. Exactly. That's
the key for me. That's the key for me.
If you keep on complaining, there has to be a point where you say, I got to do something. And then that's might be the point where Singapore football actually improves.
Or, to really be controversial, because this has been said a lot finally in social media, make that decision and say, you know what, there just isn't the interest. It's not like we're protesting about Farrer Park or Turf City, right? If this is who we are, if we really are focusing on these sports like swimming, which are more manageable,
that's the other point,
then just go for it and say, you know what? Maybe football's not our national sport anymore. But yet it is, because based on our responses and based upon our social media feeds, it is. This is why I get so frustrated with it. You know?
I just want to add one point. I feel for Singapore to go forward now, I think they should write off a few years, maybe a decade from now, write off a few years, be humble, eat the humble pie and say, we are no longer the powerhouses of Southeast Asian football. And then you build from there. And that is where the FAS comes in. They have to relook at the whole structure, talent development.
Everybody has to eat the humble pie.
Talent identification, talent development, coaches development. Everything's got to take precedence. Even grassroots football got to be given some importance. It's very disjointed. It's a very disjointed ecosystem right now in Singapore football. So that has to change. If once you change that, then you can see the talent coming through. Otherwise, right now everyone's just trying to plug the gaps. It's like you're drowning in the
very short term
in the sea, and you're beating and trying to stay afloat. It's not going to help.
Couldn't agree more. Plus, I like the way you sat up at the end there. Very ministerial, very impressive, very authoritative, very good.
Nice.
Well, do you agree with our good friend here? Let us know. Send all your thoughts on the state of local football and the SEA Games fallout to
Yahoo Southeast Asia on YouTube, Yahoo SG, Yahoo_MY on Twitter, Yahoo SEA on TikTok.
Brilliant. Thanks again, Rasvinder, for joining us.
Welcome, my pleasure.
Yep.
Do follow him. Do watch his, listen to his Ballastine podcast and his 90s.
The link is here.
2000 podcast. And then when the season starts again in September?
Yeah, you can come along to Cherry's Turf to watch the domestic workers play. It's great fun. I will tell you one thing, it's great fun. The atmosphere there in the games is, I would say, better than SPL matches. Because otherwise, taking out matches from featuring Hougang, featuring Geylang or Lion City Sailors, atmosphere is pretty, dull and boring. But in the games that I organize for the domestic workers, they literally can lift the roof off with their cheering.
Brilliant.
It's great.
Now I really have to go.
I'd like to say I'm surprised, but I'm not. I'm not surprised at all. So we hope to see all of us at one of his games very, very soon, and we hope to see you next week. Thanks. Take care.
Right. Ciao.